Alrighty. Fayston Conservation Commission October meeting. Everyone is here except for Amy Dalton. And today, I think we are going to try to spend about half an hour with Aaron from Arrowwood Environmental, talking about the wildlife corridor work. And then we can get into some of the other matters. We want to do a quick deep round of introductions for Aaron. That'd be helpful.
Okay.
Kim, why don't you start? We'll do people on Zoom first.
Hi, Aaron. I'm Kim Phelan, newest member of the commission, and I'm on Zoom from our house today.
I'm Andrea Henderson, and I'm co-chair with Brian on the commission, and I am zooming in from, I'm still in New Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Pete Collian. I live down the road from here.
And I'm Woody Dugan, and I also live down the road from here.
And Brian. Well, Aaron, I think we're just gonna do a quick approval of minutes and then we can jump to you. So we'll just try to get this out of the way real quick.
I'd like to move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Righty.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so Aaron, why don't I turn it over to you and we can go back and forth as things go as far as direction and questions.
Yeah, great. So thanks, Brian. So my name is Aaron Worthley. I'm an ecologist and GIS analyst with Arrowwood Environmental. We've done a fair amount of work in the Mad River Valley over the years, helping the town of Fayston and your neighbors with natural resource inventory type work and wildlife planning and that sort of thing. And most recently, we were working with the Recreation Conservation Visiting Project. And one of the, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this, so I'll be brief, but one of the outcomes of that was just that the kind of the ability to understand in a more sort of modern and advanced context how the wildlife movement patterns are likely present throughout the Mad River Valley is really information that we don't have at this point. And so Brian asked if we could look at that for Fayston in particular at this point, and so that's what I've been working on here. Is applying some sort of landscape and habitat modeling techniques to look at predicted wildlife travel corridors throughout the town of Fayston. So that's kind of the really quickie nutshell background here, and then I just want to kind of say that this is a work in progress right now. I'm not, it's not a complete project. I'm utilizing some, what I would say are now fairly standardized methodologies that, that we at Arrowwood have sort of developed and built for these, specifically for town and, you know, close regional project. And it utilizes some conservation biology tools that have been developed by other folks and some concepts that we've kind of brought to the table through our years of experience working on these types of projects in Vermont. And you know, our methodology has evolved and continues to evolve, and so what I'm bringing forth here is pretty different than what we did back in 2006, 2007 when we worked on the valley-wide natural resource inventory, because we did do some corridor work then, but it was by comparison fairly rudimentary given the availability of the sort of remote sensed data that we have to apply to the various concepts to. Is it possible for me to share a screen here? Is that an option? Looks like I've got it not turned on.
Hope so. Let me.
I thought what I'd do, if it's possible to share a screen, is I just run through a few quick slides here to show you kind of a little bit of the background, how we approach this type of question, and then and some of the results we're getting thus far.
Okay, let me see. I'm not sure if you have to be a host or co-host or under share, multiple participants can share.
Yeah, in
simultaneously.
other instances, if you're able to make me a co-host, that usually opens up the sharing. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, perfect.
Are you good now? Can you share?
I am good now. Yeah. Let me do this. Tell me if you can see that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is your town of Fayston. We kind of start with sort of a landscape view here. And then I just wanted to point out that whenever we approach these types of projects, we always want to give a buffer beyond the town boundary as we're thinking about these, you know, wildlife patterns and habits and that sort of thing. It's certainly, none of these creatures respect political boundaries. So our standard is a kilometer beyond the town boundary, and we find that gives, in most instances, that gives pretty good representation of sort of what's happening beyond the town line, and helps kind of you know, make sure that things don't just end at the boundary. So that's that dotted line you're looking at there. That's sort of what we would consider our study area for this. And then the corridor modeling that we're doing is what's called a cost-based analysis. And what that means is that we start with a set of assumptions that different types of landscape features have different costs to wildlife movement. So it's more costly, for example, for a wildlife, an animal of an undetermined species to move through housing developed areas, or to cross roads, or across large fields, than it is for them to move through a forested environment. And then there's other things that they will actually will favor, such as stream corridors, ridge lines, valleys, topographic valleys, those kinds of things. So we build this model that starts with what's called a cost raster, that just looks at the entire landscape of the study area and says which of these areas are more costly and which of these areas are less costly, and that's sort of the foundation for modeling wildlife movement in landscapes. And this is really a well-established you know, method for approaching these types of questions, and it's been done in all sorts of different environments. And sometimes, you know, you can build models that are very, very species specific, that we're interested in a Blanding's turtle, and we know Blanding's turtle only move in these certain types of environments, and they only move so far, and so we can be very specific about our parameters. Or in this case, we're really talking about any general wide-ranging wildlife. You know, generally thinking mammals here, but the concepts are applicable to reptiles and amphibians, and that sort of species guild as well. Less so with birds. Okay, so the first way, our standard approach to looking at this is to think about it from a forest block perspective. So the first step is to establish where the forest blocks are, and this idea of forest blocks is relatively new in the Vermont planning environment. the general concepts have been around for a long time, but the sort of the clear definitions for them have really come to the forefront in the last 5 or 6 years. And so I did a fairly quick analysis to kind of get at what the what reasonable forest blocks are in the town of Fayston. And so you're seeing those here in the green color, and they're numbered just for reference, but this is really any contiguous forested area that's greater than 20 acres. So it excludes areas of development, excludes all roads, it excludes open fields. In general, we try to include shrubby or early succession type cover. So even things like power lines and you know, and sort of transitional period, old fields that are, you know, mostly returned to small trees and that sort of thing. We try to make sure that gets wrapped into the forest block area. And then we using that underlying cost information, we can model the most viable corridor areas or travel areas from each forest block to each other adjacent forest block. So that's what you're seeing in sort of this these little areas of red and orange in between each one. So if I'm gonna, let's see, I'll zoom into maybe something here in the middle where we've got some bigger blocks and some smaller blocks, and you'll see that we have sort of these corridor areas, and some of them are a little bit more red, meaning that those are the areas that are least costly. They're most efficient and effective for allowing wildlife to move through those areas from one block to another. Others are a little bit paler. It means they still have
Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the sake of being able to get some perspective on the things you're talking about, when you zoom in, can you identify a road or a part of the larger scale map that we might identify so we know what we're looking at in detail?
Well, I didn't label the roads here.
That looks like farm.
I wonder if it'd be.
Yeah, that's Fen Basin is on the left, where it says forest blocks,
Okay,
I think, right?
it looks like
Yeah, I
Irisville's
think
down there.
Basin's up in here.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, you're certainly more familiar with the road names and the layout than I am, and I should have put the labels on here, but
all right,
Yeah,
we'll just work at it
yeah, we got it
together.
now, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm clear, the transit areas between the blocks are what are in the red and orange. So those are the red is the most high value area for animals to transit.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. And this is looking at the best areas from each block to each other block. So you'll notice that, you know, we've got one area that is a corridor zone between block 6 and block 14 here. And then one area from 14 to 18, and then one area from 14 up to this one up here. And then there, you know, I think there are occasionally ones that end up being fairly close together and scoring pretty evenly. So like in this case where you've got multiple sections along the along this one road here, there's a fair bit of high quality corridor kind of spread out along this. So it ends up showing multiple connections.
And so this is Andrea, the bottom left corner, that looks like it's German Flats. So this wide, or it's a pretty substantial part of German Flats there. That's all wildlife corridor? Potential wildlife corridor.
I think, let's see, do I have this right?
Yes,
This
where
is,
your arrow is, down there. Yeah.
yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Right,
Lot
yeah,
20, the
so-
north, lot 24.
I think this is
Yeah.
German flat here, right? Comes down
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the Mount Ellen
Right
area,
now.
right?
Yeah, I can't tell now.
Yeah, and then on the north side of that road, it will hit 17, where there's a bit of orange close to 17.
Yeah, right here.
Right there. Yeah.
Just let me, yeah, so you're talking about right here. Just let me draw. Okay, so,
Lucy, go away. So
so this is the approach of looking at this from forest block to forest block, and this is generally the approach that we take with towns in Vermont, and kind of leave it there. And Fayston's a little bit different than a lot of the towns we've worked with, in that it's a very rural town, right? I mean, there's lots of forest, relatively little development. And what roads there are throughout the town have a fairly high degree of wildlife permeability. In other words, there's a fair amount of area where forest land comes close to the road on both sides of the road, and there's breaks between the residential development that's happening along those roads. That's a good thing. It means that there's
No. Mm.
a fair amount of viability to the wildlife movement potential throughout the town's landscape. It makes it a little bit harder to like narrow in on the most valuable corridors, because there's so much. So I did start to noodle around with just kind of different ways of looking at this. And so in this case, I modeled corridors, kind of taking away the forest block idea. And I said, all right, well, what happens if we look at modeling corridors using that same cost information from each corner of from each of the four corners of the town to each of the others. And so this gives us kind of one way of looking at some of the, the I'm gonna say highest value, but it's sort of it's highest value given the parameters that we're feeding into it. And in other words, just going from corner to corner to corner to corner. And then adding to that a little bit more, well, what if we kind of do sort of points around points around all the edges? So a total of 8 points that are 4 at the corners, and then 4 at the kind of the midpoints of the sides of the town. And some of these things get replicated from the previous view, but we add a bunch of new information through the middle. And then one of the interesting things that we started to talk about in the recreation project was really this east-west valley movement. And so I thought it might be valuable to kind of look at that as well. And in this case, we're looking at only one side of the valley, but what's sort of the predominant east-west movement potential from what's effectively the Green Mountain Ridge line down to the Mad River Valley. And so that's what we're looking at here. And again, I've just kind of picked these blue areas are what we call the source locations. So that's where we're modeling to and from, movement to and from. And I just picked some areas. In this case, I picked areas in forest blocks that are along the eastern and western boundaries. And we've got big forest blocks on the west, of course, so those are big areas. And then we've got small forest blocks on the east, so they end up being small little areas. But the source area size doesn't really affect the modeling itself. And then just one other way of looking at that east-west, rather than a bunch of little ones, kind of looking in bigger and broader areas. And those movement corridors are, again, similar, although a little bit, some things change up. You'll notice that, you know, in a lot of these scenarios, there's some repeated patterns, and for example, this route here, which follows this pretty significant brook channel, shows up again and again in this modeling. Those stream channels, and valleys do get kind of preferential treatment in the model parameters in that cost analysis. So that's a reason for that. And then you'll notice also in many of these where we're modeling across big forested areas, they kind of spread out into big blobby areas. And that's just because there's so much just forest there, and we're not picking out little pieces of kind of bigger forested areas that might have more or less corridor value. The assumption being that once an animal hits a big block of forest, it's got lots of movement opportunities within that.
So up to this,
that's the quick.
impediments from what you've seen so far for animal movement across the east to west? Are there pinch points or critical areas?
Yeah, so I think what, one of the next steps I want to do is look at overlaying some of these various iterations and see what kind of sort of consistent common points are showing up again and again and again. And I haven't had a chance to really systematically do that yet. But I expect to be able to do that in the next few days. And I think that's going to be telling in terms of really hitting on the major priorities. The other thing I want to do is overlay, back in 2006, 2007, when we were doing the 3-town natural resource inventory, we did do some on the ground rapid road tracking. And so we have a bunch of information about where we saw animal tracks crossing the road in the winter at that point in time. And I'd like to bring that information in and compare that as well and see if any patterns are showing up in relationship to that. That's a little bit of we've done this for a bunch of different towns. Sometimes it proves to be very useful and consistent, and other times it's hard to draw any conclusions from it. So I just wanted to kind of preface that, so there's not unrealistic expectations, but it's worth looking at any rate. So that's the real kind of bang through it progress report summary. Are there questions I can address at this point, or?
This is Sandra. I'm not sure if it's a question well, I do have actually a question and then a point. Does the model, so the question is, in your experience with the tracking, is there a wide rate or difference in where animals are crossing in the, say, spring, summer, fall versus winter, when maybe, streams, freeze over or whatnot? So that's a question. And then one thing maybe I'd like to raise is on 17, in particular, just west of German Flats, there is all kinds of guardrail and new riprap, and that was just done last summer. So I don't know if that is, factored in there. That probably impedes a bit of what may have been more friendly to wildlife crossings before that got done last summer as a result of, shoring up the road after the flooding we had.
Yeah. I'm sorry, remind me the first point you made.
It was just a question, for, someone who's not super knowledgeable here, whether
Yeah.
there's a wide range or
Oh,
a big
seasonality,
difference,
right.
seasonality, that's the word, thank you, and where
Yep,
the
yep.
wildlife crossings are.
Yeah, so yes, so absolutely, seasonality plays a big part. The the rapid road tracking we do is by necessity in the winter because it's designed to be cover large areas quickly. And so we need the snow on the ground to be able to see where those patterns are. There, there's fairly um, consistent movement uh, of some species across the seasons. For example, fishers, coyotes, and foxes will tend to move in the same kind of preferential areas over a range of seasons. Um, and then there's animals like white-tailed deer and black bear that are moving to specific resources at different times of the year. And of course, things like bear that don't move at all in the winter for the most part. Um, and so we'll see in the winter, you'll see deer activity concentrated in areas adjacent, especially in deep snow winters, in areas adjacent to denser conifer cover where they're finding some winter habitat. Um, so yeah, it makes a difference. It's one of those things that's there's so many little bits and pieces to try to unravel here, and so that's why we try to kind of take as broad a view of this as possible, and not get too far into the weeds because yeah, it's a never ending deep dive. And then
Are there,
in terms of guardrails, riprap, and things like that, those aren't things that are integrated into the model. And I think one of the reasons is really just because we don't have that information. There's also not good science out there about how much of an impediment those types of features are to broad scale wildlife movement. So um, there's a little bit of an unknown about how it would be effectively implemented into a model like this if we did have that information. Certainly, most wide-ranging species are moving across areas that have guardrails. It may slow them down, or they may spend some time working on getting around them. It may result in more road mortality in certain areas, but it's not really known, I guess, if it's a major limiting factor to broad movement patterns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have something, Brian?
yeah, I definitely I have a bunch of different questions, but maybe just starting with what you see the final product looking like for us.
Yeah, well, that again, I'm going to ask you a few questions then. I'm curious if you folks have a sense of sort of which you feel is the critical information that you'd like to know about wildlife movement in your town. I kind of I've started with sort of what's our kind of standard approach with this forest block analysis, um, and then sort of noodled on it from there with some different ideas. But I'm curious to know if you have particular thoughts about uh, what you'd like to know in particular about wildlife movement, or how you hope to use this information that might help kind of guide how I sort of funnel this together in the end here. And then also, yeah, and then the second piece is sort of what will be the most useful deliverables for you folks. And there's a very few various ways that I can present this or offer this up to you, and so, but maybe if we could just start and just hear a little bit from you about sort of what do you feel is critical to know here, and how do you hope to use this?
One of the things that spurred us to get on this subject was an increased interest in having some knowledge that would influence our advising for recreational development, places that are off of the driven corridor, but where you know, want to know that we're in places that have high potential to be bear denning or deer wintering habitats for the sake of winter recreational activities, and then, you know, where it might not be so wise for us to have an existing trail and possibly consider rerouting it, or be better stewards of the land when it comes to people proposing new trail networks for recreational purposes. And then the second thing that has often concerned me is just having a better understanding of where the potential for say things like seeking improved culvert development or bridge modeling so that bobcats can cross underneath roads rather than over, or such on and so forth.
Yeah, I would add on to that list of potential management is also conservation easement. If there's particular
Yes.
zones, especially like the first map, maybe the second map you showed of the red, where there's crossings between forest blocks, like would any of these be potentially important if we had an opportunity to try to get some sort of protective easement from development, so they maintain that little bridge?
Right, similar
Yeah.
to, I think, what they discovered in Warren, right? A pinch point, and then they were able to purchase a parcel that came up for sale. And advise neighboring property owners of, you know, how they could provide some cover for these animals. So I think that would be important.
Is this something that we would then be publicizing to, sorry, this is Kim. Would we then be publicizing to the town, you know, and showing them overlays? Here are the really important wildlife corridors. If you live along these, we would, you know, urge you to be aware. I'm just wondering if that's going to bring up any issues with more people focusing hunting in certain areas. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just a thought that popped into my head.
Yeah, I don't know if we've really had conversations about how we plan to take this work and then communicate it to the public. So I think that's something for us to continue to wrap our heads around. I do think that there's we do know that there's Warren has its work, and with the upcoming and CC discussing where we are, I guess, with this work and how it might, overlap or potentially create more future work with the other towns. Could certainly be, that would be more of an internal conversation amongst the conservation commissions as far as what we're seeing. But I don't know if we've really had much thoughts about that. I think for mostly it's been for us to better understand.
Yeah, and to just have some information available to us if we get to the point where we start to recognize changes in planning and zoning regulation that we might want to weigh in on, that having this information readily available to us could influence how we approach that.
Yeah. Do you see, Aaron, the value, or is there so all the CRV work with the zones, the different priorities, ecological priorities? So if we were looking at large mammals or, deer wintering habitat overlays, or the mass dams or bare wetlands, is that, I wonder, going back to your kind of statement about being in the weeds versus the high level forest lots, like, are there things at a level where we already have some mapping, so we're not looking to create new, but we're just trying to overlay that would be of value to influence us as far as what might be the thoroughfares that really should be on our radar?
Well, you certainly should be looking at those habitat elements on their own. I think we tend not to kind of try to parse out and look at corridors on a species by species basis, because you're going to leave so much behind, or it's just going to be such a monumental effort, it's just not financially feasible. And so that's sort of the kind of the reason for this more general approach to it. I think when you start to overlay looking at some of those high value habitat elements with the corridors, you'll start to see, I'm fairly confident you'll start to see some consistent patterns between that. And certainly when you have some of these habitat elements that are within the larger forested areas, and so the movement to those throughout, from those habitat units to the edges and then beyond, and then into the next forest block on the other side of a developed corridor is going to be, it's all fairly permeable within that forest block, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So is this
With that being said, there are a few elements that are brought into this that will focus the corridor placement within those forest blocks, those prominent ridge lines, deeper valleys, stream courses, those sorts of things give a little bit, give areas of the forest block more weight as a corridor than other areas.
Aaron, this is Pete. So the final form of the deliverable, I can see printing out, static maps, but is this going to live in a form? None of us are GIS experts, but we could probably hack our way through some of the, top level information. It would be nice. It's a question. Are we going to be able to have this as a layer adjustable, tool where we can maybe pull in what has already been done for the CRB project, et cetera?
Yeah, so I will definitely give you the raw GIS data, so you'll have that to kind of store or house as you wish. We also make all of our town projects. We kind of keep a repository on our website, so at any point in the future, if you or the next iteration of the Conservation Commission needs to find that information, that's we keep that all available for you going forward. And I'll give you kind of a brief summary memo that kind of outlines what went into this and the results. And then I think the real useful piece is going to be, how are you going to display this for yourselves? How, and use it for yourselves, and how are you going to share it? And so there's really kind of two avenues for that. And one is a web mapping platform that I can put all this into something, very similar to like a Google Maps type thing, where you can zoom in and out, you can turn layers on and off, and sort of see things in greater detail or from a further out perspective. That's really useful for individuals, for you guys to kind of look at it on your own. So if that's really going to be your priority, that would probably be my recommendation if you're going to be using this to think about some of these longer term planning goals and conservation prioritization, that sort of thing. If your goal is really to be more of a public presentation type thing, where you want to put posters up at community events and that sort of thing, then we would probably go with like a large format PDF that you could get printed and something you can put up on an easel at events and that sort of thing. Those are kind of useful sort of marketing tools, but a little bit less useful in that they don't show that you don't have the accessibility to the detail and the ability to really dial in certain areas.
Brian,
My
is this
preference would be both.
yeah, Brian, is this a layer that could be added to the package of mapping that was done for CRV?
That's probably an Aaron question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think we have the goal of also sharing this on a community-wide basis. The
Yeah.
Mad River Valley is such a kind of all-in-one community in so many ways that, and that project unifies all the towns and puts that emphasis, the conservation interest stuff, in putting it in a place where all of us can look at it and
Yeah.
have equal access would be great.
Yeah, so I think it's certainly possible. It's doable. I think that the CRV project isn't an active project for us. So in terms of kind of how we're interacting with those kind of finalized deliverables and adding to it, I would need to clarify that with the broader CRV group. And then I think the only other kind of outstanding piece is just time and budgeting and how that all works. And I haven't run through a budget analysis on this project yet to kind of see where we stand. But my expectation is that I'm probably not going to have a lot of flexibility for doing a bunch of extra, adding a bunch of extra time onto it.
That would be something we could come to you later to do if
Yes,
with additional.
absolutely.
Okay, well, we probably will have to have a more of a discussion and then get back to you on what it looks like.
yeah,
And then on that budget point, I think I heard Andrea say both to the web map and the PDF maps, and I agree that would be the ideal scenario, and that's what I would hope to do. But again, I need to just kind of look at the budget thing, and so if I can make that work, I absolutely will, and if I can't, I'm wondering if you folks have a preferred direction that as we start with.
if it's either or, I'd vote for the web enabled interactive thing.
Woody,
Okay.
Thanks, too.
Andrea,
Yeah, me too.
and I think Kim.
And like I say, I will make a concerted effort to make that make both happen for you. So I certainly think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, even if it looks like it's beyond budget, let us know what it would look like to prepare posters, because we again could potentially come back in 2026 to have that kind of product prepared.
Okay.
Do you have more? Do you feel like you got enough from us to as far
Yeah,
as
no,
what
I
we're
think your list of kind of intended uses for this is super helpful, and I think that I'm starting to already think about some ways to kind of pull this stuff together to help be as useful as possible to those different points. So yeah, I think that's great, and I've got a good sense of some deliverables for you at this point, and I think the only other thing I wanted to mention was that if as you're thinking about this into the future, I think the natural next step, and something that Warren did a fair amount of, is some actual on the ground field verification, and that's always a useful thing. It's not it's got its own set of challenges, but especially as you kind of move into thinking about specific areas and focusing in on certain things, you have a particular conservation priority or something like that, adding a field verification piece at some point down the road to a concentrated area is helpful. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Any other final parting questions or thoughts you want to share with Aaron before we let him go?
Mhm.
No, but thank you so much for coming and sharing what you have so far with us.
Yep.
Ditto.
Like,
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Alrighty.
Okay, so I'm gonna be shooting to have stuff pulled together for you. But is the 20th you said was your
Tri-Town. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll-
And
by like a week before that, or at the latest, I'll plan to have a package of material for you.
yeah, and if there's any thoughts as far as
Great.
questions or things for the commissions collectively to think about moving forward, that might be very helpful too, if you just have a little bullet list of opportunities for future coordination and collaboration.
Okay. Great.
You have to take back the meeting.
Well, I think I just shared, so I think we're still good. I didn't do the co-host, I just
Oh,
did the
okay.
sharing,
Yes.
so, yeah, I think Aaron's good to drop if you want.
Okay. Nice to meet everybody and have a good evening.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Alrighty. We're all still here. Okay.
Yes, we are.
We have 6:30. Do we want to discuss anything about this work or anything else folks want me to potentially convey to them in the via email or?
I think that he understands that we might have pursued this as a tri-town product. But because of a lot of things that we've discussed before, we've got to pay for things.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just turned out that the best move for us was to just do it independently and see if other people follow suit.
Yeah,
We know Warren more or less has led suit, so.
right. Okay. Any other thoughts before moving on?
No, well, on the
No.
ground, that, it's a purely theoretical exercise, really, when you get right down to it, and I guess that should have been obvious, but that's what I took away from this, and then if we are really interested in a particular area, then you gotta go and look at the ground, what's happening.
Yeah, that was I had that question written down before the meeting,
Yeah,
will there be any field verification? And,
yeah.
um,
Well, what's your budget?
he answered it before I could ask the question.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's something that would be interesting to explore and maybe with the other, see what
I agree.
others have done and how it's a collaborative volunteers and all.
I think
effort.
with this tool, we would be able to identify focal points for field verification and not say, oh, we need a
Right,
Yep,
yeah,
verification
so.
of the whole kit and caboodle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Tri-Town. Andrea, are you able, I don't want to put too much on you if you're driving.
So I'm here and I think I took myself off mute. I shared the, seems a pretty standard type agenda that Waitsfield had put together. And, if there's anything you would want added to that agenda, maybe just shoot a note. We can shoot that over to Waitsfield. But we should, I think, maybe Brian or whomever else, be sharing where we are, but that's probably something, I think like last time we put together a collaborative type document about what we wanted to report out from the town. So that would be my suggestion for how we move forward. And also we can use that to get started on a fall newsletter because we've got lots of good stuff to report out on at that as well.
We need to take more time to find that agenda. Did that come from Bruno? There was just a lot of things coming through. So
I
might
just
have-
forwarded it to everybody again today, or not again, but I forwarded it, I think today to everybody or yesterday.
Okay,
Yeah, it would have come from Bruno.
all right. Good. Okay, so do we wanna is there other administrative things that weren't on the agenda that folks wanna talk about, or should we just jump into project updates with the remainder of our time?
I'm ready for project updates.
Let's go there then with starting with you, Andrea, on invasives and knotweed.
All right, so Waitsfield is doing its riparian tree buffer planting, riparian buffer tree planting. Saturday, rain date is Sunday. You may have seen it. It is on the B app. Anyone is interested in joining in. Saul and I have, signed up. So there are plenty of open spaces. And we have our allocation. I need to secure 35 of the tree planting tubes and stakes, so I'm on a mission to do that. But my thought was, 35 is not a big number. Well, actually, it's 35 trees and maybe, I think, 5 fishings and 15 live stakes. The live stakes take, 1 minute each to get into the ground. So it's not something I feel like we need a big, volunteer effort. Amy and I did it last year with my son Will. Far fewer. But how do you all feel about November 1st, which is a Saturday? Would any of you have some time to assist me in getting these things in the ground? Or I'm also up for doing it, some weekday. It's a slower time for me.
Oddly enough, I'm available on November 1st.
Yeah, I will be in the anytime after 10:30, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I have a COVID shot at like 10, but I might reschedule that. All right, well then let's leave it for November 1st. Maybe, 10 to 12 or something like that. Thank you.
Where's the,
We'll be planting along 17 across from Mad River Lodge where we've been clearing. And we'll also be planting along the Chase Brook up by Barton Road. And maybe a couple more by German Flats. But those would be the 3 locations.
Wait. I still have to figure out this B app. Is there a way to share the particular page with that information?
Yeah, I'll send an email after the meeting.
Alrighty.
I'm on the B app. I can't find those projects listed.
It's at Farley Park.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Are you gonna sign up? That's awesome.
Cha-ching.
you got it.
Alright, you're next. Chase Brook Management Plan.
I got
I can,
nothing.
yeah, there's not much to update. Kai was doing an amazing job, taking a deeper dive on, resource assessment, wildlife habitat assessments, and coming up with, draft recommendations.
My bandwidth is now expanded,
Okay.
yeah. So I can engage on that. Is it living, in a Google Doc?
It is living in a Google Doc. I'll reshare. It's been heavily revamped.
Sure.
And with Kai now taking a very significant role in drafting, so I mostly am just taking his sections and putting them in
Yeah.
under headers and
Yeah.
trying to keep it organized. But it basically looks more like a single plan because we had gone with these two plans and we found it to be rather repetitive.
Mhm.
And so it's a single plan. And then at the end, there will be like the more classic forest management recommendations, which is all the work Michael did as far as how to manage the blocks but we're gonna try to get rid of this whole go through everything once under the stewardship plan and then have
Right.
repetition as far as habitat and wildlife and how the forest
Yeah.
plan may affect those values and resources. So hopefully it will be a little easier to follow and understand, and also the management recommendations come straight with the discussion of the resource, whereas it before was kind of,
So-
it was kind of like a background, and then like 25 pages later, it was like management recommendations.
Right.
So you had to hop around a bit, so we're trying to make it a little bit easier for readers to understand.
Awesome.
So I'll share that with you. Chasebrook maintenance. Andrea, maybe, because I think
Yep.
you all, yeah, what do you
Okay.
got?
Okay, so I added it, to our pre-read, but essentially did just speak with Central Vermont Pest Control. They recommend continuing on, two $200 powder post beetle treatments. So, that's what we've built into our budget request and recommend continuing on with that. The 2 pollinator beds have been seeded with cover crop, and that's coming in real nicely. So that's amazing. And you and Amy did a wonderful job of protecting our serviceberry tree. So I'm sure that will thrive next year. And I think that is it. Oh, we do need to get the picnic tables in. So, I think, Patty's foot is healing, but, I don't know that we want her necessarily lugging those things in. So maybe when we do the tree planting, we could take a pit stop over there and get the 3 picnic tables inside the barn.
Yeah, and I realized I forgot, I should have talked about this when we were talking about the plan. I was thinking more of the plan itself and the Google Doc. Amy and I were down on the trails the other day and Kai had raised this. And the trail up has a significant number of stones that have all been painted by camp kids. So, and these are just like stones on the trail. These aren't the little stones that sometimes you see, right? So the trail is, looks different than it has in the past. And I think part of this will come through the management plan. We're gonna have to come up with terms for the camps,
Mm.
because they are allowed to use the barn, right? They rent the barn out basically for their camps, but I don't think we've been very clear about what the expectations are. So I think we're gonna have to come up with some more rules, and recommendations.
And maybe meet with the people who ran the camp. And,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
It's definitely kind of, there's a ferry trail, so there's these signs, but then there's a lot of what is not at all a leave no trace principle. Or,
yeah,
so I think there's definitely important discussions to be had
yeah,
and obviously getting feedback, but
yeah.
we probably will need to refine our.
It's not an art trail.
It's right. Or a fairy trail.
We
Um,
were
These are not
surprised by that
endangered
as well.
All right, I was in and out of a bad area. I'm on 100 now. Yeah, so to the extent that it doesn't go along with the leave no trace, obviously that's an issue, but Otherwise, I love it.
Good.
Alrighty.
On Chase Brook, I've also sent a letter to Josh Livingston to see about repairing the driveway, at least at the curb cut.
Oh,
And
thank you.
got some approval, I got approval from Mike and Ron on the select board to just ask and have him put it on his agenda. I didn't hear back from Josh, but I have a feeling that he probably has put it on their list of projects.
Great.
Super. Oh, and Amy isn't at the meeting today, but when we did the harvest, I'm not sure what you call it, harvest volunteer day at Fayston Elementary. After that, she grabbed some knotweed that Kai had pointed out that had traveled a bit down Chase Brook. So we just need to keep our eye on that as well.
Alrighty. Well, the next thing is wildlife corridor, so we just got an update on that. And the next thing after that is CRV, and it really is no update since our last meeting. So the next one is the Bear Initiative.
Sorry, it takes me a minute to get myself off mute. There was tabling at the Mad River Glen Green and Gold Day and the Sugar Bush Community Day. The story contest has closed, and there are plenty of entries to win our lovely prizes. And I think we're continuing to bring this positive messaging is the goal of success stories and what to do to try and minimize the negative bear human interactions and keep them wild. There is an upcoming webinar, a repeat of the one at the end of September, and Jacqueline Camo has updated the slide with our new mrvbears.org website and had a whole slide on the good work that we're doing here in the Mad River Valley. So that was nice to see.
That's great. All right, and then Boyce Hill.
You wanna start?
Go ahead, Pete.
So you see in the update, we chipped the trees that we cut. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was from the description. There's still a big pile to be moved. But I went up, when did I go up? Sunday? Check on the mowing. I don't know where it is now.
Mowing is complete.
Okay.
Extra complete.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Well, we'll just say that we sent a revised map, which I think I shared with most of you.
Yeah.
If not all of you. And they just kind of stretched the stretches a little bit. So we got a bit wider region between 1 and 3 than, or 1 and 2 than expected. So it's a reset. We start regenning again in there. It's pretty rough and it's pretty coarse. Because things had gotten ahead of it
Right.
there, as you know. So but the mowing was completed. It got done this year as usual, later than never. So that's okay. The track vehicle made impacts on the soils that we have mixed emotions about. In some ways, it seemed to probably create some accessibility for seeds. And maybe
It's a good way to
maybe
think about it.
new
Yeah.
grasses and plants, like rototilling and sometimes stirring the soil, breaking the surface is a way to get things to grow better. And I think Pete and I have both thought, is that more or less stems that are left behind by this mowing apparatus than the other? I think in some kinds of plants, it took off more, it did better on some of the small trees and less on the raspberries.
Yeah.
We'll probably walk different routes.
The ski community will let us know what they think, you know.
We will.
What remains, you know. They don't seem like plunging sticks, but you know, they're
Whippets.
little, yeah.
Yeah, snow snakes.
Yeah. The whole idea of, goats being involved in the management of Boyce Hill. You know, I think there's some real potential there, and she's growing her herd significantly from the knotweed size herd of 15 or however many goats it is to like 150 is what she was shooting for. I can't imagine having her job. She's itinerant with the flock, and she's got to find a way to overwinter her goats and feed them. It's just a cost. And she said that she's evaluating that this year, but next year, bringing them down to Maryland. And so they have a, you know, a winter for us, way to eat and be paid. So it's just, I just had a couple of informal conversations with her. She thinks you're the best, Andrea. And we'll see where it goes, but you know, one thing that is interesting, you know, we delay our mowing because of ground nesting birds. And, you know, she's trying to sell use of her goats, and we have to validate this, but she had some experience where they eat around, they don't disturb the ground nesting birds, and you can have them grazing while the birds are still nesting.
We'll talk to Audubon about it.
So again,
We can talk to Audubon
Yeah.
about that,
yeah,
get some verification.
and the idea that sheep graze down, goats graze up. So particularly, you know, Woody's explored this idea of using the sidearm mower for some areas where it's kind of steep and
Ditches and transitions.
yeah. And goats would also be, you know, very, very good there, and
They sure would.
yeah.
How do you feel about the methanes? They're not carbon neutral. That's the only thing you gotta know about goats.
Yeah. Well,
Well, they'll add to the soil quality.
it's
They might.
it's the nature of the output, you
Yeah.
know, rather than just
Yeah,
direct to methane as opposed to slow decomposition, right? Of downed woody stuff. Anyway, that's just it's just a exploration and process, I'd say.
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to talk more about it.
Can I go back to mowing real quick?
Yeah.
Do you all have any take on whether with the snowcat version, whether this is something it's a in-kind donation of, but if you had your druthers, would you seek to have other
Methods.
yes.
Yes. I think Pete and I both think that a brush hog would work better than
Yeah.
the flail mower that they used previously and this mulcher in the front that they used on the snowcat. I think it would cut things in a neater, closer to the ground fashion. But that's the way memory serves me, and there have been some areas that were brush hogged that didn't come out as unstubbly as I sometimes think they did. So.
And in the completed mowing, they did not do near the barn foundation. True.
No, Warren and I talked about it, and he said, if I take this thing in there, I'm going to rip up the edge of the pond. Trying to get it, just to get it there, which we thought it would be a bit hard on the.
Oh, you're talking about
Trail.
the toe of the dam?
No, I'm talking about the area around the barn, but
Okay.
he'd have to bring the machine down to near the picnic bench to
Yeah.
access. And then he can't comfortably reverse and then steer himself into the next lane. He can't make a radius turn that fits into that area. And he just was really reluctant to try it in there. He thought it would be too constricted a space without enough room to turn around and redirect his work. So I kind of visualized it that way too, seeing some of the activity of what turning radius it could achieve with that thing, and how if he tried hard to get a tight turning radius, it was really tearing things out.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, we opted not to go that way, and maybe we'll go back to either seeing about getting a brush hog on a tractor in there, or a field and brush mower if we pursue, go down that path.
Or test
Goat.
drive goats.
I
Mhm.
plenty of water there.
So. For the next 2 days, we're hosting tours of Boyce Hill. So tomorrow, the UVM students are gonna be there. I may be here for that,
Is that the Julie Frost?
yeah. And Friday. VLT's Board of Trustees.
Oh, that's when their visit is. I thought it was last Friday.
No, it's this Friday. So. Yeah, we'll just, it's just spreading the Boyce Hill love among
Yeah,
people and,
well, we ought to get some interesting feedback out of having the VLT board
yeah,
visit this property so
Yeah.
soon after the mowing.
yeah.
Sorry, one more time. BLT board is what?
Vermont Land Trust. And they are the easement holders on Boyce Hill.
Ah, got it.
Their Board of Trustees is having their annual meeting at Mad Bush Falls, and they're doing some visits in the valley just because they don't want to sit indoors all day. You know, visit some sites, so this is one of them. I don't know where else.
They might be doing Chase Brook, no?
I think maybe, I don't know.
I'm interested in that, Scrag Mountain,
I thought it was.
possibly.
Yeah. And
And they might be doing Pratt Reservation too over in Duxbury.
Yeah.
anyway. That's it.
Well, maybe we can try to get some photos for them for our fall newsletter.
Photos of them. Yeah.
At Boys,
Yeah.
either one, students or.
Or
Pete's
and-
planning to, Pete's
Yeah.
planning to attend and
I'll
I
be there.
Okay.
may not be able to go.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Um,
Oh, it might have been one of the farms.
Hmm?
One of the farms that they
Mhm.
drag or Kingsbury.
so it's not, so that's all of the project updates, and. We don't have anything else on the agenda, but, it would be good to. Sort out the newsletter. Maybe I was supposed to do this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I think, Brian, it would be just, I think, helpful if we approached it kind of like the ones in the past, if you just set up an outline and we all just get after it.
Okay, what, I can easily do that. I think what's helpful for me is to know when we're trying to do these things.
I'd like it to come out before our budget meeting on November 17th.
Okay, and anyone else, is there, between now and then, are there things where we have a couple things over the next 2 days, which would be nice to include in the newsletter?
Mhm.
But is there anything else that we're holding off on before I get a draft to you all? We have a tree planting on the 1st. I guess we could also write things up and then just add the photos in.
Exactly. Yep, good idea.
Okay, well, I will plan on getting a draft to you all by probably, I'll probably put it together this week, and then when do we want it to go out? If, before the set, do we want it going out before the 17th or?
Yes, I think so. Maybe that Friday. The Friday before the 17th. I think the 17th is a Monday.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Do we want to try to get out earlier or?
I mean,
in
earlier
November?
is great, sure, but definitely by the
We
14th.
say about. Yeah,
The only reason we couldn't send it out by Halloween is if we wanted to include photos of the tree planting the next
right, yeah,
Yeah, how about the
Yeah.
10th of November?
a week ahead,
week ahead.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure,
Without objection, so ordered.
great. All right, now I will get the draft to you all soon. You can plug away on your sections and we can add photos in as they come in. Good. Did something else to?
I have another business thing,
Okay,
and that relates to the guy that you know, that I chatted up
Oh,
about.
Dick Ryan.
Yeah. Have you spoken to him?
Not since then, no.
Yeah. He didn't. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna put that right in, and we didn't. We haven't gotten anything on the Fayston Conservation email address, right?
No.
Well, he expressed interest in joining us, so. Well, maybe I'll make a follow-up with him.
Do you have his contact info?
I sure do.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you want, you can share it with me.
Okay.
And, or, yeah.
Maybe in my phone, it may be on my computer only.
well,
Okay.
maybe when the newsletter could be the reason to share it,
Yeah,
right? Hey, here's our update
we want
for
to
you.
congratulate you on your appointment, but. No, yeah,
Other business matters? Anything for, for, to identify for our next meeting will be the Tri-Town, but if there's anything specific for our December meeting.
Did we sort out a date for the December meeting?
Know if we have a date for that.
Cause it's,
Yeah, I think we still need to pick a date.
Christmas Eve.
let's not do that.
Does the
Oh.
week or December 17th work for folks? The same time?
I think so.
Yeah, it's fine for me.
It's not fine for me.
Is December 10th too early if we want to keep it on a Wednesday? Or do we want to find a different day the week of the 15th?
December 10th works for me.
Um.
What looks good for you, Pete, the week of the 15th?
Every other evening is fine.
All but Tuesday.
All right, so Tuesday's off. Anyone else have limitations the week of the 15th? Excluding the
Nope.
16th?
It's fine for me.
So we have, how about Monday or Thursday then? Is there a preference, 15th or 18th?
I would prefer Monday, I think. Not that it matters that much, but
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
How about we do Monday, December 15th?
Perfect.
All right. There we go.
Super.
Andrea, you set up straight.
Well, this could not have worked out better, you all. I pulled into my garage about 2 or 3 minutes ago.
All right. Welcome back. All righty. If there's nothing else, let's
So-
adjourn. Call this meeting over.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Hey,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
see you. Bye-bye.